"Ah, look at this." Captain Ryan Mercer sneered as he slammed the black woman against the side of his patrol SUV. A black woman walking around with a camera like she owns this town. Who do you think you're fooling? Several officers burst into laughter. Officer Daniel Ross twisted Vanessa Brooks's arms behind her back until the handcuffs clicked shut. "You really thought that little phone could protect you?" Daniel mocked. "Around here we decide what the truth looks like." Ryan stepped closer, ripped Vanessa's phone from her hand, and let it crash onto the pavement beneath his boot. "You came here acting brave." He laughed. "In 5 minutes, you'll be another name buried in paperwork, and nobody will care what you have to say." The officers laughed louder. Daniel yanked open the rear door of the patrol car and shoved Vanessa inside. "Go ahead," he sneered. "Memorize the inside of that cage. It's the only office you'll be working from today." Vanessa never argued. She simply looked at them with an unnerving calm. Hidden beneath her jacket collar, a tiny encrypted recorder blinked once before silently transmitting every shove, every insult, and every illegal order to a secure DOJ server. None of the officers realized they had just forced the lead federal investigator of their own corruption case into the back of a patrol car. Before we reveal how this unbelievable moment began, tell us where you're watching from and what your local time is in the comments. If you enjoy unforgettable stories of justice, courage, and shocking reversals, subscribe now so you won't miss what happens next. Welcome, friends. Every journey is a reminder that beneath different languages, traditions, and landscapes, we all carry similar hopes. 3 weeks earlier, Ashwood, Georgia looked like the kind of town politicians love to showcase. Tree-lined streets, freshly painted storefronts, children riding bicycles through quiet neighborhoods, and banners hanging from every light pole proudly declaring, "Safest community in the state." To outsiders, Ashwood was a success story. To Vanessa Brooks, it was the perfect place to hide corruption. She parked her aging silver sedan across from a small coffee shop and quietly watched the police station on the opposite side of Main Street. Dressed in ordinary clothes with no badge visible, she blended in with the morning crowd. A notebook rested on her lap, filled with dates, names, patrol schedules, and dozens of observations gathered over the previous 4 months. Officially, Vanessa didn't exist in Ashwood. The Department of Justice had assigned her to the town under deep cover after receiving anonymous complaints alleging racial profiling, fabricated arrests, missing evidence, and intimidation of witnesses. Every accusation pointed toward one name: Captain Ryan Mercer. Yet every internal investigation had ended the same way. No wrongdoing found. That alone convinced Vanessa someone inside the department was manipulating every report. She stepped into the coffee shop and greeted the owner, an elderly woman named Martha Collins. "The usual," Martha smiled. Vanessa nodded. "Quiet morning." Martha glanced toward the police station before lowering her voice. "It's always quiet. Until they decide it isn't." Vanessa noticed the fear behind the woman's smile. It was the same expression she had seen on nearly everyone in town. People whispered. Nobody reported. Everyone was afraid. Later that afternoon, Vanessa visited Thomas Reed's hardware store. Thomas, a respected businessman in his 60s, looked over both shoulders before locking the front door. "I almost canceled," he admitted. "They've been watching me." Vanessa remained calm. "What changed your mind?" Thomas opened an old filing cabinet and removed a thick envelope. "They stopped my son 3 times in 1 week." He placed photographs across the counter: bruises, broken headlights, tow reports, repair invoices. "They never arrested him," Thomas whispered. "They just wanted him scared." Vanessa carefully examined every document. "Were reports filed?" Thomas laughed bitterly. "They filed reports." He slid another folder toward her. They wrote that my son became aggressive. He never raised his voice. Vanessa quietly photographed every page using an encrypted device disguised as an ordinary phone. "This helps," she said. "It helps more than you know." As she prepared to leave, Thomas caught her arm. "If they find out I'm talking—" "They won't," Vanessa replied. Although she sounded confident, she knew the investigation was becoming increasingly dangerous. Someone inside the department was leaking information. The following morning, Ryan Mercer stood inside the police briefing room. 6 officers waited for instructions. Ryan tossed a stack of printed photographs onto the conference table. One picture showed Vanessa sitting outside the courthouse. Another showed her speaking with Thomas Reed. Another captured her leaving a church community meeting. "I don't know who she works for," Ryan said coldly. "But she's asking questions nobody should be asking." Officer Daniel Ross leaned forward. "You think she's media?" Ryan shook his head. "No. She's too patient. She listens more than she talks. That makes her dangerous." The room fell silent. "I want every patrol unit watching her. No harassment. Not yet. If she slips up even once," Daniel grinned, "we'll give her a reason to leave town." Ryan smiled. "Exactly." Across town, Vanessa walked through Riverside Park, where local families gathered every Saturday. A black father sat on a bench helping his daughter feed ducks. The peaceful afternoon lasted less than 2 minutes. 2 patrol cars rolled onto the curb. Officers jumped out. Daniel Ross approached the father aggressively. "We received a complaint." "What complaint?" the man asked. "That you'll answer downtown." Without explanation, Daniel grabbed the man's arm. The little girl burst into tears. "Daddy!" People stopped walking. Nobody intervened. Vanessa instinctively reached into her handbag and activated the encrypted recording application hidden behind an ordinary camera interface. Every second mattered. She remained several yards away, quietly documenting the encounter. The father repeatedly asked the same question. "What did I do?" Neither officer answered. Instead, Daniel shoved him against the patrol car. The child's cries echoed across the park. Vanessa's jaw tightened. This wasn't policing. It was intimidation. She continued recording. Ryan Mercer happened to drive past the park. The moment he noticed Vanessa holding up her phone, his expression changed. His SUV stopped abruptly. He stepped out without closing the driver's door. "There she is." Daniel looked over. Their eyes followed Ryan's gaze, straight toward Vanessa. Ryan's voice turned icy. "I told you she'd make a mistake." Vanessa immediately understood. She wasn't witnessing the incident anymore. She had just become part of it. Ryan began walking toward her. Daniel followed. Several officers spread out quietly, cutting off every direction she could leave. Families hurried away. Parents pulled their children closer. Within seconds, the cheerful park had fallen completely silent. Vanessa slipped her phone into her jacket pocket. Not to hide it, but because the encrypted transmission had already begun sending every second of footage to a secure federal server hundreds of miles away. Ryan stopped only a few feet in front of her. His smile never reached his eyes. "So, we finally meet." Vanessa calmly met his stare. Neither of them spoke for several seconds. She already knew this conversation would determine everything that happened next. And Ryan had already decided she wasn't leaving that park without handcuffs. Ryan Mercer stopped less than 3 feet from Vanessa Brooks, folding his arms as if he had already won. "I've been watching you," he said with a smug smile. You ask too many questions for someone who claims to be just passing through. Vanessa remained composed. I watched officers detain a man without explaining why. Every citizen has the right to record a public interaction. Ryan chuckled. That's what they teach people on the internet. He slowly circled her, studying every detail of her face. But around here I decide what causes a disturbance. Officer Daniel Ross stepped beside him and extended his hand. Phone. Vanessa didn't move. I haven't broken any law. Daniel's expression hardened. I wasn't asking. Without warning, he grabbed her wrist and ripped the phone from her hand. The crowd gasped. A woman pushing a stroller instinctively raised her own phone to record. Don't, her husband whispered, pulling her arm down. You'll only make things worse. Fear spread through the park faster than the afternoon breeze. Vanessa watched Daniel scroll through her phone before tossing it onto the hood of the nearest patrol car. Looks like somebody enjoys recording police officers, he laughed. Ryan leaned closer. Maybe she's collecting souvenirs. The officers around him laughed. Vanessa spoke evenly. You're seizing personal property without probable cause. Ryan smiled wider. And who's going to stop me? Daniel suddenly reached into her handbag. He dumped everything onto the pavement. A notebook, a wallet, a set of car keys, a pen. The items scattered across the concrete as several children stared in confusion. Daniel kicked the notebook toward Ryan. Looks like she's been keeping notes on us. Ryan flipped through several pages. Dates, times, badge numbers, patrol locations. His smile faded for only a fraction of a second. Then he slammed the notebook shut. So this is what you've been doing? Vanessa answered calmly. Observing public activity isn't a crime. Ryan tossed the notebook into the puddle beside the curb. It is when I say it is. He crushed it beneath his polished boot. Across the street, Thomas Reed had just stepped out of his hardware store carrying a shipment invoice. The moment he recognized Vanessa surrounded by officers, he froze. His first instinct was to run toward her. His second was stronger. If Ryan saw him helping everything he had secretly given, Vanessa would be discovered. Thomas stood helplessly behind the crowd, his hands trembling. Back in the park, the little girl whose father had been detained continued crying. Daddy didn't do anything. No officer acknowledged her. Vanessa looked toward the child, then back at Ryan. She's watching everything you're doing. Ryan glanced over his shoulder before answering without emotion. She'll forget. Vanessa quietly replied, no. She'll remember that nobody protected her father. For the first time, Ryan's smile disappeared completely. That's enough. He nodded toward Daniel. Cuff her. Daniel grabbed Vanessa's left arm. Another officer seized her right. The cold steel cuffs snapped around her wrists. A ripple of disbelief moved through the crowd. She didn't touch anybody, an elderly man shouted. Ryan pointed directly at him. You want to spend the afternoon in jail too? Silence. Nobody spoke again. Daniel shoved Vanessa toward the patrol SUV. As they walked, he deliberately bumped her shoulder into the vehicle's metal frame. You should have minded your own business, he muttered. Vanessa stumbled, but never complained. She noticed the body camera attached to Daniel's uniform. Its small green light was flashing. Recording. Good. Ryan walked beside her. You know what your problem is, Vanessa looked at him. You think rules apply to everyone? Ryan laughed. They don't. They apply to people without power. Daniel opened the rear door of the patrol vehicle. Before pushing her inside, he leaned close enough that only she could hear. "When the report is finished, it'll say you resisted arrest." Vanessa answered quietly. "But I didn't." Daniel smirked. "The report doesn't have to tell the truth." He shoved her into the back seat. The heavy door slammed shut. Outside, Ryan gathered the officers. "Here's how this goes," he said confidently. "She interfered with an active investigation. She refused lawful commands. She became aggressive." Every officer nodded. No one questioned him. Inside the patrol car, Vanessa listened without reacting. The metal cage separated her from the front seats. Sunlight reflected off the window, making it almost impossible for anyone outside to see her. She lowered her eyes toward the torn lining beneath her jacket collar. The tiny encrypted transmitter was still active. Its battery indicator blinked once. Transmission secure. Every conversation outside the vehicle, every fabricated instruction, every false report, every word spoken by Ryan Mercer was already being copied onto encrypted DOJ servers hundreds of miles away. Ryan climbed into the driver's seat. Daniel settled into the passenger seat with Vanessa's confiscated phone resting on his lap. "You think anybody's looking for her?" Daniel asked. Ryan started the engine. "If she has family, they'll find her after booking." Daniel laughed. "What if she's some lawyer?" Ryan shrugged. "Then she'll learn lawyers can't save themselves." The patrol SUV rolled away from Riverside Park. Behind it, frightened families slowly gathered around the crying little girl and the father who had finally been released without explanation. Several witnesses exchanged uneasy glances. For years, they had watched people disappear into those patrol cars. Most stayed silent afterward. But today had been different. Too many people had seen what happened. Too many phones had started recording before fear forced them down. And unknown to Ryan Mercer, somewhere inside a secure federal command center, a red notification had just changed to flashing amber. Undercover agent offline. Last transmission active. The response team no longer believed this was simply an investigation. They believed one of their own had just become the victim of the very crimes she had been sent to expose. The patrol SUV rolled through the gates of the Ashwood Police Department. Captain Ryan Mercer stepped out. First straightened his uniform and smiled at the officers standing near the entrance. "Another disorderly citizen," he announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. "We'll have the paperwork finished before dinner." Several officers laughed. Daniel Ross opened the rear door and grabbed Vanessa Brooks by the arm. "Move." Vanessa stepped out without resisting. Her calm demeanor irritated Daniel more than any argument could have. "You still think somebody's coming for you?" he muttered. Vanessa looked directly at him. "I think everyone answers for their choices." Daniel smirked. "Not in this building." Inside the station, officers glanced up from their desks. Some looked amused. Others looked uncomfortable. No one spoke. Ryan deliberately led Vanessa through the center of the bullpen instead of taking the shorter hallway to processing. He wanted everyone to see her in handcuffs. "Take a good look," Ryan called out. "This is what happens when people interfere with police work." A few officers chuckled. One rookie lowered his eyes. Vanessa noticed him, but kept walking. The booking room smelled of stale coffee and old paperwork. Daniel removed her belongings from an evidence tray. Wallet, keys, notebook, broken phone. He held up the notebook with a grin. "She's been keeping notes about us." Ryan took the notebook and casually tossed it into a shredder beside the desk. The machine growled as page after page disappeared. "There," Ryan said. Problem solved. Vanessa never flinched. Ryan frowned. Aren't you even upset? I already read every page, she answered quietly. You destroyed paper. Not the truth. For the first time that day, Ryan's expression tightened. He leaned close enough that only she could hear. You don't understand who you're dealing with, Vanessa replied in the same calm voice. No. I think you don't understand who you're dealing with. Ryan laughed loudly, masking the brief uneasiness that had crept into his mind. Still pretending to be important, he nodded toward Daniel. Interrogation room. Minutes later, Vanessa sat alone beneath a bright fluorescent light. A single camera watched from the ceiling. Her cuffed hands rested on the cold metal table. The door opened. Ryan entered carrying a thin case file. He dropped it onto the table. I'll make this simple. You admit you interfered with an investigation. You apologize. You leave Ashwood. And we forget today ever happened. Vanessa looked at the blank statement lying in front of her. There wasn't a single completed sentence on the page, only a signature line waiting at the bottom. You want me to confess before you've written the accusation? Ryan smiled. Saves time. Vanessa slowly pushed the paper back across the table. No. Ryan's patience disappeared. He slammed both hands onto the metal table. You think you're smarter than me. I think facts matter. They don't. They matter in court. Ryan stared at her for several seconds before leaning back. There won't be a court. He gathered the unsigned paper and walked out. Outside the room, Officer Emily Carter had quietly witnessed the exchange through the observation window. Emily had joined the department less than 2 years earlier. She believed in the oath she had taken. But lately, too many arrests ended without charges. Too many reports changed after Ryan reviewed them. Too many body camera files mysteriously disappeared. She watched Ryan hand Daniel a clipboard. Write it exactly like we discussed. Daniel nodded. She shoved me first. Ryan smiled. And don't forget she refused repeated lawful commands. Emily frowned. She had been standing in the park. She knew that never happened. When Daniel walked away, Emily quietly opened the incident report on her computer. The document already contained timestamps, officer statements, descriptions of resistance. Every detail had been written before Vanessa had even arrived at the station. Emily's heartbeat quickened. How could the report already be complete? She compared it with the automatic dispatch log. The times didn't match, not even close. She discreetly saved a copy onto an encrypted department archive that Ryan rarely checked. Then she printed another copy and slipped it into her locker. Something was terribly wrong. Across town, Thomas Reed paced nervously inside his hardware store. His television displayed a local news bulletin. Police detain woman after interfering with officers during public incident. No name, no explanation. Only Ryan Mercer speaking confidently into the camera. The situation was handled professionally. Thomas clenched his fists. He knew every word was a lie. He reached for his phone before stopping. If he called the station, Ryan would know. Instead, he unlocked a hidden safe beneath his office floor. Inside rested another external drive. It contained surveillance footage, financial records, and months of evidence he had secretly collected against officers demanding cash from local business owners. He whispered to himself, if they can arrest her, they'll come for me next. Back at the station, Vanessa remained alone in the interrogation room. The silence didn't bother her. What concerned her was something else. According to protocol, DOJ headquarters should have received her scheduled status update nearly 30 minutes ago. She had deliberately missed it. That meant someone at headquarters already knew something had gone wrong. She closed her eyes for a moment. Not in fear. In trust. She trusted the evidence. She trusted the system she had spent her career defending. Most of all, she trusted that the tiny encrypted transmitter still hidden beneath the stitching of her jacket collar had continued sending every illegal order, every fabricated report, and every threat since the moment Ryan Mercer had ordered her into the patrol car. Outside, Ryan stood in his office looking over the forged paperwork with satisfaction. He signed the bottom page without reading it. Capito. By tomorrow morning, he said confidently to Daniel, this woman will disappear from everyone's memory. Neither man noticed the secure federal server automatically flagging dozens of inconsistencies between the officer's written reports and the live audio recordings that had been uploading all afternoon. Hundreds of miles away, an emergency response team had already begun preparing for deployment. Captain Ryan Mercer walked out of the interrogation room with the confidence of a man who believed he had erased every threat against him. He tossed Vanessa's confiscated phone onto Daniel Ross's desk. Anything useful? Daniel shook his head. It's encrypted. Ryan smirked. Doesn't matter. It'll disappear with the rest of the evidence. He turned toward the evidence technician. Log that phone. The technician hesitated. Captain, department policy requires digital extraction before. Ryan cut him off. I didn't ask for policy. I gave an order. The technician swallowed hard and quietly placed the phone inside an evidence bag marked for destruction. Across the room, Officer Emily Carter watched the exchange. Another policy ignored, another shortcut, another lie. She opened the department's evidence management system and searched Vanessa Brooks' booking record. Something immediately caught her attention. According to the digital log, Vanessa's phone had supposedly been entered into evidence 10 minutes before the patrol SUV even arrived at the station. Emily frowned. That's impossible. She refreshed the screen. The timestamp remained unchanged. Someone with administrator privileges had edited the record before Vanessa entered the building. Her eyes slowly lifted toward Ryan's office. Only one person had that level of access. Meanwhile, Vanessa sat alone in the interrogation room. The silence was almost comforting. She had spent years interviewing organized crime figures, corrupt officials, and violent offenders. Ryan Mercer wasn't unique. He was simply more arrogant than most. She replayed every conversation in her mind, every threat, every false statement, every fabricated instruction. The transmitter hidden inside the collar of her jacket had captured everything. If it was still transmitting, headquarters already possessed more evidence than Ryan could imagine. The only question was how long it would take them to act. Down the hallway, Daniel leaned against Ryan's office door. What about the park witnesses? Ryan barely looked up from the forged report. They'll keep quiet. And if they don't, Ryan signed another document, then they'll suddenly remember something different. Daniel laughed. You really think nobody will challenge this? Ryan leaned back in his chair. People don't fight the police. They survive the police. Those words echoed through the partially open doorway. Emily heard every one of them. Her stomach tightened. This wasn't poor judgment anymore. It was deliberate corruption. At nearly the same moment, Thomas Reed parked behind his hardware store. He carried a worn backpack that contained a portable hard drive. Inside were months of secretly recorded security videos. Several showed uniformed officers demanding free merchandise. Others captured cash payments disappearing into patrol vehicles. One recording clearly showed Daniel Ross threatening to revoke business permits unless Thomas cooperated. Thomas stared at the drive. Vanessa had promised the evidence would reach federal investigators, but now she was sitting inside the very department she had been investigating. He whispered to himself, "If they silence her, this evidence dies with me." His phone vibrated, an unknown number. Thomas answered cautiously. "Hello?" A calm female voice spoke. "Mr. Reed?" "Yes." "This is Special Agent Lisa Monroe with the Department of Justice." Thomas froze. "I'm calling because we believe Investigator Brooks has encountered an unexpected situation." Thomas looked around the empty office. "Is she—" "We don't know yet. But if she contacted you before today, we need every piece of evidence you have." Thomas hesitated only a second. "You'll have it." "When?" Lisa answered immediately. "Tonight." Back at the station, Ryan gathered several officers inside the briefing room. No one speaks to the media. No one releases body camera footage. No one discusses today's arrest. An older sergeant raised a hand. "What if Internal Affairs asks?" Ryan smiled. "They won't." The room relaxed. Ryan's confidence was contagious. Most of the officers had spent years believing he could solve every problem. Emily no longer believed that. After the meeting ended, she quietly approached the patrol SUV Daniel had driven earlier. She wasn't looking for evidence. She was looking for confirmation. Inside the vehicle, the dashboard computer still displayed the automatic body camera synchronization screen. Her eyes widened. Upload failed. Normally, every patrol camera automatically uploaded footage to the department server once the vehicle returned. Today's recording hadn't. Emily checked the connection. The system showed the camera had attempted to upload multiple times before suddenly losing authorization. Someone had manually blocked the transfer. She immediately copied the error log onto a small encrypted flash drive she kept attached to her keychain. If Ryan erased everything else, this log would still prove the footage existed. Inside his office, Ryan watched security monitors covering every hallway in the building. One screen showed Vanessa sitting alone, still calm, still waiting. "She's not scared," Daniel observed. Ryan narrowed his eyes. "She should be." Daniel folded his arms. "You think she's hiding something?" Ryan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he replayed the moment in the park when Vanessa had calmly said, "Every decision you're making right now is your own." Those words bothered him. Most people begged, some shouted, others threatened lawsuits. Vanessa had done none of those things. She had behaved like someone who already knew how the story would end. Ryan suddenly stood. "Search her again." Daniel looked confused. "We already did." I said again. Minutes later, Daniel unlocked the interrogation room. Vanessa slowly looked up. Daniel placed latex gloves over his hands. "Stand." She rose without argument. He searched her jacket, sleeves, shoes, even examined the seams along the inside lining. He found nothing. Frustrated, Daniel stepped back. "What exactly are we looking for?" he muttered. Ryan watched from the doorway. "I don't know. But she's too calm." Vanessa quietly straightened her jacket. "Finished?" Daniel glared at her. "For now." Neither officer noticed the transmitter was no longer inside the outer lining. It had been sewn deep beneath the folded collar fabric, invisible unless the stitching itself was cut apart. Hundreds of miles away, inside a secure DOJ operations center, multiple screens continued filling with live transcripts. Every fabricated report, every illegal order, every attempt to destroy evidence, every minute strengthened the federal case. Special Agent Lisa Monroe turned toward Assistant Attorney General Michael Grant. The evidence threshold has been exceeded. Michael studied the growing case file for only a moment before giving a single order. Immobilize the response team. No more waiting. Inside the Ashwood Police Department, Ryan Mercer still believed he controlled every piece of evidence. He had no idea the strongest evidence against him had never been inside the building at all. Officer Emily Carter waited until the hallway outside Captain Ryan Mercer's office was empty before quietly closing her computer. The copied incident report rested inside her locker. So did the dispatch logs. Now she carried one more piece of evidence, the failed body camera upload record. Individually, each document raised questions. Together, they painted a pattern she could no longer ignore. Emily had joined the Ashwood Police Department because she believed the badge represented service. Lately, it had become a shield for something else. She glanced toward the interrogation room. Vanessa Brooks still sat alone. No lawyer, no phone call, no complaint. Just patience. Who are you? Emily whispered under her breath. Across the station, Ryan Mercer stood in the evidence room supervising the destruction of several digital files. The evidence technician hesitated. Captain, state regulations require written authorization before deleting digital records. Ryan didn't even look at him. You have my authorization. I meant the court's authorization. Ryan's eyes narrowed. You work for this department. The technician lowered his head. Yes, sir. Ryan pointed toward a hard drive. Wipe today's temporary uploads. Daniel Ross leaned against the doorway, grinning. Nobody's going to miss a few files. The technician reluctantly connected the drive. Folders disappeared one after another. Park camera, booking hall, evidence intake, processing room. Ryan watched the progress bar climb. 20%, 40, 60. When it finally reached 100, he smiled. There. Now today officially happened the way we say it happened. Neither man realized the department server had only contained duplicate copies. The original recordings had already been mirrored to secure federal storage long before anyone attempted to erase them. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away in Atlanta, the Department of Justice Operations Center had become unusually quiet. Rows of analysts studied synchronized transcripts appearing across dozens of monitors. Every spoken sentence matched the encrypted recordings transmitted from Vanessa's concealed device. Assistant Attorney General Michael Grant walked slowly through the room. Status. Special Agent Lisa Monroe answered immediately. We've confirmed probable cause for obstruction of justice evidence tampering, false reporting, unlawful detention, and civil rights violations. Michael stopped beside the main display. What about corroboration, Doctor? Lisa touched another screen. Independent witness statements are beginning to arrive. Body camera synchronization logs confirm attempted deletion. And we just received another evidence package. She pointed toward a courier entering the room carrying a sealed case. From Thomas Reed. Inside the case were surveillance drives, financial records, and signed affidavits. Michael quietly reviewed several photographs. One image showed Officer Daniel Ross accepting an envelope filled with cash behind the hardware store. Another captured Captain Ryan Mercer leaving through the rear entrance minutes later. The timestamps stretched back almost 2 years. Michael closed the folder. This wasn't one bad arrest. Lisa nodded. It was an organized operation. Back in Ashwood, Thomas Reed sat alone inside his office after handing every piece of evidence to federal agents. His shelves suddenly looked empty. For the first time in months, he felt lighter. Then the front bell rang. Officer Daniel Ross stepped inside. Thomas's heartbeat nearly stopped. Daniel smiled politely. "Afternoon." Thomas forced a smile. "What can I help you with?" Daniel wandered casually through the store. "Heard you've been talking to strangers lately." Thomas remained silent. Daniel picked up a box of screws before placing it back on the shelf. "Captain Mercer always says loyal businesses have nothing to worry about." He stepped closer. "But disloyal ones." His smile disappeared. "Usually find inspectors showing up every week." Thomas met his eyes. "I run an honest business." Daniel shrugged. "Hope you can prove it." He walked out without buying anything. Thomas locked the front door the moment Daniel left. He knew that visit hadn't been random. Ryan was beginning to suspect someone inside town had been helping Vanessa. At the police station, Emily finally made a decision. She quietly approached the interrogation room carrying a paper cup of water. Daniel noticed. "What are you doing?" "Prisoners still get water." Daniel rolled his eyes. "Don't waste your sympathy." Emily unlocked the door and placed the cup on the table. Vanessa looked up. "Thank you." Emily hesitated before speaking. "Did they?" She lowered her voice. "Actually resist arrest." Vanessa studied her carefully. "What do you think?" Emily didn't answer. Vanessa continued. "You were there." Emily's silence became her answer. Vanessa gently slid the untouched cup aside. "Truth has a way of surviving." Emily looked confused. "Even when evidence disappears," Vanessa replied calmly. "Especially then." Daniel suddenly appeared at the doorway. "Finished?" Emily nodded and stepped out. As the door closed, Vanessa noticed something tucked beneath the paper cup. A tiny folded napkin. Without attracting the camera's attention, she unfolded it beneath the table. Only 4 handwritten words appeared. "I know they're lying." Vanessa looked toward the observation window. Emily was already gone. A faint smile crossed Vanessa's face. The first crack had appeared inside Ryan Mercer's department. Late that evening, Ryan gathered his senior officers one final time. "I've spoken with the county prosecutor. The charges move forward tomorrow." Daniel laughed. "So she's finished." Ryan nodded confidently. "By tomorrow afternoon, nobody will remember Vanessa Brooks." At that exact moment, nearly 80 miles away, a convoy of unmarked black SUVs rolled out of a secured federal facility. Each vehicle carried armed DOJ agents, forensic specialists, and federal investigators. Assistant Attorney General Michael Grant sat in the lead vehicle reviewing Vanessa's investigation file one final time. He closed it slowly. "No sirens," he instructed. "No advance warning. We do this by the book." Lisa Monroe looked toward the highway stretching into the darkness. "ETA." Michael checked his watch. "Less than 2 hours." Back inside the Ashwood Police Department, Ryan Mercer confidently turned off the lights in his office. He believed every loose end had been tied. He believed every witness had been intimidated. He believed every file had been erased. What he didn't know was that the federal convoy was already heading toward Ashwood. And with every mile it traveled, the illusion of control he had built for years was coming closer to collapsing forever. The Ashwood Police Department was unusually quiet just after sunrise. Captain Ryan Mercer stood at the front windows overlooking Main Street Coffee in one hand and a folder labeled State of Georgia v. Vanessa Brooks in the other. He smiled. Everything appeared under control. The reports had been rewritten. The witnesses had been intimidated. The evidence had been erased, or so he believed. Daniel Ross entered carrying another stack of paperwork. The county prosecutor accepted the preliminary charges. Ryan nodded without looking up. Good. What are we charging her with? Daniel read from the report. Obstruction. Resisting detention. Interference with law enforcement. Disorderly conduct. Ryan chuckled. That should keep her busy for a while. Neither man noticed Officer Emily Carter standing silently outside the office door. Every charge was fabricated. Every statement contradicted what she had personally witnessed. She quietly walked away before either officer saw her. Vanessa Brooks remained inside the interrogation room after an entire night without meaningful questioning. She looked tired, but not defeated. The silence had become another weapon. Ryan wanted uncertainty to wear her down. Instead, it gave her time to think. The hidden transmitter had stopped blinking several hours earlier. That wasn't a malfunction. It meant headquarters had successfully received the complete evidence package. Now she had only one job. Stay calm. Stay alive. Stay silent. The door opened. Ryan entered alone. He placed the criminal complaint on the table. This is your last chance. Vanessa looked down at the document. Every allegation was false. Ryan slid a pen across the table. Sign the statement. Admit you interfered. You'll pay a fine. And you'll leave Ashwood. Vanessa slowly pushed the pen back. I won't confess to something that never happened. Ryan leaned forward. You still think someone important is coming? Vanessa answered quietly. I think the truth always arrives. Ryan laughed. The truth, the only truth that matters, is the one sitting in our files. He gathered the unsigned papers and stood. By this afternoon, you'll be standing before a judge. And every officer in this building will testify against you. He turned toward the door before adding, you'll lose. The heavy door slammed behind him. Across town, Thomas Reed watched through his storefront window as two patrol cars parked across the street. Neither officer came inside. They simply waited. Watching, Thomas understood the message. Ryan Mercer wanted him frightened. Instead of panicking, Thomas unlocked the back office. He opened the empty safe where the evidence had been stored. Nothing remained. Every document, every recording, every financial ledger was already in federal custody. For the first time in years, Ryan no longer controlled the most dangerous secrets in Ashwood. Back inside the police department, Emily quietly opened the internal evidence database again. She searched Vanessa Brooks's booking record. Something new appeared. Case locked modified by Captain R. Mercer. She opened the revision history. 6 separate edits had been made after midnight. Witness statements changed. Times adjusted. Officer narratives rewritten. Emily stared at the screen. This wasn't merely unethical. It was criminal. She printed the audit log before quickly deleting the print history from her workstation. As she slipped the pages into her folder, a voice startled her. What are you working on? Emily turned. Daniel Ross stood behind her. She forced a smile. Finishing paperwork. Daniel glanced toward the printer. You've been doing a lot of paperwork lately. Emily shrugged, trying to stay caught up. Daniel watched her for another second before walking away. She waited until he disappeared around the corner. Then she exhaled. That had been too close. Late that morning, Ryan assembled nearly every officer in the briefing room. Vanessa, still handcuffed, was escorted inside. Ryan wanted an audience. He wanted to humiliate her before sending her to court. He stood beside her like a prosecutor already celebrating victory. Then this woman, Ryan announced, thought she could come into our town and undermine law enforcement. Several officers nodded. Daniel folded his arms proudly. Ryan continued. She recorded officers, interfered with an arrest, refused lawful commands, and assaulted one of my deputies. Vanessa calmly interrupted. No one was assaulted. Ryan ignored her. You'll have your chance in court. He turned back toward the room. Every officer present will confirm today's report. Silence filled the room. Ryan expected immediate agreement. Instead, Emily Carter slowly stood. Her heartbeat pounded inside her chest. Every instinct told her to sit back down, but she couldn't. Captain, Ryan looked at her. Yes, Emily swallowed. I was at Riverside Park. Ryan's smile remained. And kitutum? Emily chose her words carefully. I don't remember seeing her assault anyone. The room froze. Daniel stared at her in disbelief. Ryan's expression darkened. What exactly are you saying? Emily hesitated. I'm saying, the report doesn't match everything I saw. Ryan walked toward her. Each step echoed across the room. When he stopped, they stood only inches apart. You've been here less than 2 years. Emily remained silent. I've protected this department for 20. He lowered his voice. So let me give you some advice. Choose your next sentence very carefully. Emily felt every eye in the room fixed on her. She looked toward Vanessa. Vanessa said nothing. She simply gave Emily the slightest nod. Not encouragement, not instruction, only quiet confidence. Emily took a slow breath. I won't sign a report I know is false. The room exploded into whispers. Ryan's face hardened. So that's your decision? Yes, sir. Ryan looked toward Daniel. Escort Officer Carter to administrative leave. Daniel blinked. Right now, immediately. 2 officers reluctantly approached Emily. She removed her badge with trembling hands and placed it on the conference table. Ryan watched coldly. You've just ended your career. Emily met his eyes. No. I think I just started protecting it. She walked out between the officers. Ryan turned back toward the room. Anyone else? No one answered. Satisfied, Ryan picked up Vanessa's case file. This hearing proceeds exactly as planned. He had regained control, or so he believed. Outside the station, hidden several blocks away, a convoy of unmarked black SUVs quietly entered Ashwood city limits. No emergency lights, no sirens, no warning. Assistant Attorney General Michael Grant looked through the windshield toward the distant police station. Special Agent Lisa Monroe checked the operation clock. 2 minutes. Michael closed Vanessa's investigation file one final time. Let's bring her home. Inside the Ashwood Police Department, Ryan Mercer adjusted his uniform before preparing to escort Vanessa to court. He had no idea that the people about to walk through his front doors already possessed enough evidence to dismantle his entire career. Captain Ryan Mercer adjusted the front of his uniform one final time before nodding toward Daniel Ross. Bring her. Daniel unlocked Vanessa Brooks's handcuffs from the interrogation table and fastened a transport chain around her wrists. You've been quiet all morning, he said with a mocking grin. Reality finally sinking in. Vanessa looked at him calmly. The only thing sinking today is someone's career. Daniel laughed so loudly several officers joined in. Still pretending you're important. He pushed her toward the front lobby. Ryan wanted every officer in the building to witness her final humiliation before court. The lobby slowly filled with deputies, dispatchers, and administrative staff. Ryan stood proudly near the entrance. "Everyone remember this," he announced. "No matter who you are, nobody comes into Ashwood and challenges this department." The front doors suddenly slid open. Every conversation stopped. 3 men wearing dark business suits entered first. They carried leather credential cases but displayed no expressions. Behind them walked 6 more individuals in matching attire. No one recognized them. Daniel frowned. "Can I help you?" The lead man ignored him and calmly scanned the room. His eyes settled on Vanessa. Then he turned toward Ryan. "Captain Ryan Mercer." Ryan stepped forward confidently. "That's me. I'm Assistant Attorney General Michael Grant." The room became silent. Ryan forced a polite smile. "Well, this is unexpected." Michael didn't return the smile. "We're here regarding an ongoing federal investigation." Ryan relaxed slightly. "Perfect timing." He gestured toward Vanessa. "This woman interfered with one of our arrests. We're preparing to transport her to court." Michael looked at Vanessa for only a brief moment before facing Ryan again. "Before anyone leaves this building, I have a federal order." He removed a sealed document bearing the gold seal of the United States Department of Justice. Ryan accepted it confidently. His smile slowly disappeared as he read the first page. "What is this, a federal preservation order?" Michael answered. "No documents. No digital files. No evidence. No personnel. Leave this building." Ryan looked up sharply. "On what grounds?" Michael answered without raising his voice. "Credible evidence of systemic civil rights violations, obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, and conspiracy." The lobby erupted into whispers. Daniel stepped forward. "This is ridiculous. You can't just walk into my station." Michael calmly opened his credential wallet. Daniel's words stopped immediately. "Federal identification. Senior DOJ authority." Lisa Monroe entered behind him, carrying a secure evidence case. Several federal investigators quietly spread throughout the building. One approached the dispatch office. Another moved toward the evidence room. Another disconnected the department's main server from the network. Ryan's voice hardened. "You should have notified me before entering." Michael looked directly at him. "If we had, the evidence would have disappeared." Ryan's jaw tightened. "You have no proof." Lisa Monroe placed the sealed evidence case on the front desk. "We actually have quite a lot." She opened the case. Inside rested multiple hard drives, printed transcripts, photographs, and signed affidavits. Ryan immediately recognized Thomas Reed's surveillance images. His face turned pale. "Where did you get those?" Lisa ignored the question. Instead, she removed another folder. "Captain Mercer, would you like to explain why Officer Daniel Ross accepted cash payments from local business owners?" Daniel's expression collapsed. "I don't know what that is." Lisa slid another photograph across the counter. "What about this one?" Daniel said nothing. Ryan interrupted. "Those pictures prove nothing." Michael calmly nodded. "You're right. Photographs alone don't." He looked toward one of the federal forensic analysts. "Play recording 7. The analyst connected a secure tablet to a portable speaker. Ryan's own voice filled the lobby. "People don't fight the police. They survive the police." Every officer froze. The recording continued. "Delete today's uploads. The report doesn't have to tell the truth." By tomorrow, she'll disappear from everyone's memory. Daniel instinctively stepped backward. Emily Carter, standing quietly near the hallway, closed her eyes. She finally understood. Vanessa hadn't been bluffing. Every illegal conversation had been captured. Ryan pointed angrily toward Vanessa. "She recorded us," Michael answered immediately. "No. She documented crimes committed against her during an active federal investigation." Ryan's breathing became uneven. He looked around the room. Every face had changed. The confidence he enjoyed only moments earlier had vanished. Several officers quietly stepped away from him. No one laughed anymore. No one defended him. Michael slowly walked toward Vanessa. Without saying a word, he produced a key. The transport chain fell to the floor with a metallic clang. The handcuffs opened. For the first time since arriving at the station, Vanessa rubbed her wrists freely. Ryan stared in disbelief. "What? Who is she?" Michael looked directly into his eyes. "Captain Ryan Mercer. Allow me to introduce Senior Civil Rights Investigator Vanessa Brooks, the lead Department of Justice investigator assigned to Operation Ashwood." The room fell into absolute silence. Daniel's face lost all color. Several officers instinctively looked toward Vanessa with stunned disbelief. Ryan stood motionless, unable to process what he had just heard. The woman he had humiliated, threatened, falsely arrested, and attempted to frame had never been an ordinary citizen. She had been building the federal case against him from the very beginning. Ryan opened his mouth to speak. No words came out. And Michael Grant wasn't finished. He slowly reached into his briefcase and removed one final sealed arrest packet. Ryan Mercer stared at the sealed arrest packet in Assistant Attorney General Michael Grant's hand. The confident smile that had defined him for years was gone. His voice came out strained. This has to be some kind of mistake." Michael looked at him without emotion. "No, Captain. The mistake was believing your badge placed you above the law." The lobby remained silent. Vanessa Brooks quietly adjusted the sleeve of her jacket where the handcuffs had left deep red marks. She said nothing. She wanted every officer in the room to hear the truth from the Department of Justice, not from her. Michael nodded toward Lisa Monroe. "Proceed." Lisa stepped to the center of the lobby and connected a secure tablet to one of the department's briefing monitors. The screen illuminated. At the top appeared a federal seal. "Operation Ashwood Classified Investigation." Gasps echoed through the room. Ryan's eyes widened. The first slide displayed dozens of photographs. Traffic stops, illegal searches, destroyed evidence, citizens forced to the ground. Each photograph carried a date, time, GPS location, and officer identification. The next slide appeared. Documented incidents, 147 confirmed civil rights violations, 63. Pending federal review, 84. Every number struck the room like a hammer. Ryan slowly shook his head. "Those statistics are fabricated." Lisa calmly advanced to the next screen. "They're supported by body camera footage, dispatch records, citizen statements, financial audits, and recordings collected over 7 months." She paused. "Including yesterday." Ryan glanced toward Vanessa. His breathing became heavier. Michael spoke again. "Captain Mercer, would you like everyone here to hear the recording from your office yesterday afternoon?" Ryan remained silent. Michael nodded to the forensic analyst. The recording began. Ryan's unmistakable voice echoed through the station. "Delete today's temporary uploads. Now today officially happened the way we say it happened." Another clip followed. The report doesn't have to tell the truth. Daniel Ross slowly lowered his head. A third recording played. People don't fight the police. They survive the police. No one moved. No one spoke. Several officers who had once admired Ryan quietly stepped farther away from him. Emily Carter stood near the back of the room. She watched years of carefully built lies collapse in only a few minutes. Michael turned toward her. "Officer Emily Carter." Emily looked startled. "Yes, sir." "You preserved evidence instead of destroying it." Emily hesitated. "I only did what I thought was right." Michael nodded. "And because of that, multiple federal crimes can now be independently verified." Emily felt tears gathering in her eyes. For 24 hours, she had feared losing her career. Now she realized she had saved it. Lisa placed another folder on the counter. Next item. Thomas Reed entered through the front doors, escorted by 2 federal agents. Every officer recognized him. Ryan stared in disbelief. "You..." Thomas looked directly at Ryan. "For years I stayed quiet because I believed nobody would protect my family." He looked toward Vanessa. "She changed that." Thomas signed a sworn affidavit before everyone in the room. Lisa displayed surveillance footage captured inside Thomas's hardware store. Daniel Ross appeared on screen accepting envelopes filled with cash. Another video showed Ryan Mercer entering minutes later. Financial records followed. Bank deposits, cash withdrawals, business inspection schedules, everything matched. Daniel's knees nearly gave way. I can explain," Michael answered firmly. "You'll have that opportunity. In federal court." Ryan suddenly stepped forward. "This entire investigation was illegal." Vanessa spoke for the first time since being uncuffed. "No, Captain. My investigation was authorized by the United States Department of Justice." She calmly reached into Michael's briefcase. He handed her a leather credential wallet. Vanessa opened it slowly. The gold federal badge reflected beneath the station lights. Several officers instinctively stood straighter. The identification card beneath the badge read, "Vanessa Brooks, Senior Civil Rights Investigator, United States Department of Justice." Daniel closed his eyes. Everything suddenly made sense. Her confidence, her silence, her refusal to panic. She had never been hoping someone would rescue her. She already knew the evidence had. Ryan's voice cracked. "You never told us who you were." Vanessa met his eyes. "You never asked. You made your decision before learning anything about me." Ryan looked around desperately. Somebody say something. Nobody did. The same officers who had laughed while Vanessa was shoved into the patrol SUV now refused to meet her eyes. Several quietly removed their duty belts and laid them on nearby desks. One sergeant spoke first. "I won't make another false statement." Another officer nodded. "Neither will I." Within seconds, nearly half the room stepped away from Ryan and Daniel. The silence became deafening. Michael opened the final folder. "Captain Ryan Mercer." He removed a signed federal warrant. "You are under arrest for conspiracy to violate civil rights, obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, falsifying official records, witness intimidation, and multiple related federal offenses." Ryan stared at the warrant. His shoulders slumped. He finally understood. There was no escaping. No rewritten report. No intimidated witness. No deleted file. Daniel looked toward the rear exit. A federal agent immediately blocked the doorway. "I wouldn't." Daniel slowly raised his hands. Lisa Monroe nodded toward 2 agents. Take them. Federal agents stepped forward. The metallic click of handcuffs echoed across the lobby. Ryan Mercer instinctively looked toward the same booking desk where Vanessa had stood less than 24 hours earlier. Now he occupied the exact same place. Only this time, every arrest report was true. As agents escorted Ryan past Vanessa, he stopped for a brief moment. "I built this department," Vanessa answered calmly. "No. You built a system that feared the truth. And the truth finally arrived." Ryan lowered his head. Without another word, he was led through the same front doors where he had proudly displayed his authority only hours before. Outside, dozens of reporters had already gathered. Television cameras turned toward the entrance. The moment Ryan Mercer emerged in federal handcuffs, flashes exploded across the morning sky. The people of Ashwood finally witnessed what many had waited years to see. Justice had stepped through the front door. The courthouse steps were lined with television cameras by the time Captain Ryan Mercer and Officer Daniel Ross were escorted outside in federal handcuffs. Just 24 hours earlier, Ryan had stood before those same cameras, boasting about professionalism and public safety. Now he walked with his head lowered, surrounded by federal agents. No officer saluted him. No deputy defended him. No one spoke his name. The silence was louder than any accusation. Across the street, residents of Ashwood slowly gathered behind the barricades. Many had watched friends, neighbors, and family members disappear into patrol cars over the years. Some had paid fines for crimes they never committed. Others had remained silent because they believed no one would ever believe them. Today, they watched justice unfold with their own eyes. Inside the police department, federal investigators continued cataloging evidence. Every computer was seized. Every evidence locker was photographed before being opened. Every patrol vehicle was processed by forensic specialists. The same interview rooms once used to intimidate citizens were now occupied by federal agents interviewing officers one by one. Some refused to speak. Others broke within minutes. Several admitted they had altered reports because Ryan Mercer demanded it. Others confessed they had watched misconduct happen, but were too afraid to challenge their captain. Every statement strengthened the federal case. Emily Carter remained seated in a small conference room, answering questions with complete honesty. She admitted where she had remained silent. She admitted what she wished she had stopped sooner. Most importantly, she handed investigators every document she had secretly preserved. Michael Grant reviewed the files before looking at her. "You could have destroyed these." Emily lowered her eyes. "I almost convinced myself it wasn't my responsibility." Michael gently closed the folder. "But you didn't. That decision protected innocent people." Emily exhaled slowly, feeling the weight she had carried for months begin to disappear. Meanwhile, Thomas Reed stood outside his hardware store as neighbors slowly approached him. For years, everyone had known something was wrong. No one had dared say it aloud. An elderly woman reached for Thomas's hand. "You weren't crazy after all." Thomas smiled for the first time in months. "No. We were just waiting for someone who couldn't be intimidated." Across town, workers quietly removed the large banner hanging outside the police department. "Safest community in the state." The words no longer belonged there. Several weeks later, the courthouse overflowed with spectators during the first federal hearing. Former officers entered through the same security checkpoint they had once controlled. This time they wore prison uniforms instead of badges. Ryan Mercer sat at the defense table. He looked older, smaller. The confidence that had once filled every room around him had completely disappeared. When the judge asked whether he understood the charges, Ryan answered softly, "Yes, Your Honor." He never looked toward the gallery. He couldn't. Too many familiar faces sat there. People he had ignored, humiliated, threatened. Now they watched him answer to the very justice he believed he could manipulate. Outside the courtroom, reporters surrounded Vanessa Brooks. One journalist asked the question everyone wanted answered. When you were forced into that patrol car, were you afraid? Vanessa smiled thoughtfully before answering. I wasn't afraid for myself. I was afraid for every person who had gone through that door before me without anyone documenting what happened. Another reporter asked, "When did you know the investigation would succeed?" Vanessa glanced toward the courthouse behind her. The moment honest people decided they were no longer willing to stay silent. Weeks later, the Department of Justice announced sweeping reforms. Ashwood Police Department was placed under federal oversight. Independent auditing systems were introduced. Body camera footage could no longer be altered without multiple layers of verification. Citizen complaint procedures were rewritten. Mandatory civil rights training became a condition of employment. Emily Carter was invited to help develop the department's new ethics program. She accepted, not because she believed she was a hero, but because she never wanted another young officer to mistake loyalty to a supervisor for loyalty to justice. Thomas Reed reopened his hardware store with a new sign near the entrance. It didn't advertise tools or prices. It displayed a simple sentence, "Truth takes courage." One quiet afternoon, Vanessa returned to Riverside Park. The same bench still overlooked the pond. Children laughed as they fed ducks. Families gathered without fear. The little girl who had cried when her father was wrongfully detained was there again. She recognized Vanessa immediately. "You're the lady from the police car." Vanessa smiled. "I am." The little girl held out a small flower she had picked moments earlier. "My dad says thank you." Vanessa accepted it gently. "You tell your dad something for me." "What?" "Tell him he never deserved what happened." The girl nodded and ran back to her family. Vanessa remained on the bench for another moment, watching the peaceful afternoon unfold. Justice had not erased the pain. It never could. But it had restored something just as important: hope. As she stood to leave, her phone vibrated. A new assignment? Another town? Another investigation? Another place where someone believed power could silence the truth. Vanessa smiled, slipped the phone into her pocket, and walked toward her waiting vehicle. Because justice was never just one case. It was a promise, and she intended to keep it.
True justice begins when ordinary people refuse to stay silent in the face of wrongdoing. Courage is contagious, and one honest decision can inspire an entire community to stand for what is right. If this story moved, you share your thoughts in the comments, tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe for more unforgettable stories of courage, dignity, and justice.